Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Today I wanted to tackle another question that I get an awful lot, and that is how long to spend on a unit study. Now, I do want to point out that there is no black and white answer to this question because everyone homeschools differently, every unit study is different, and even the way that you approach unit studies can be completely different. You can do one, kind of in a relaxed way where you're just gathering information at the library or as you go to support your child's interest, or you might be following a more structured type of unit study. And I also think it's really important to point out that when a lot of unit studies will come with a time period that you should spend on doing each one. Even the unit studies that I have on Teachers Pay Teachers, they do ask you on Teachers Pay Teachers how long of a duration. So I give an estimate of how long to spend on the unit studies. But that is honestly up to every single family, because every family will choose a different number of unit study activities to do every day. They might even only do them certain days of the week. Sometimes they might not do as many activities altogether as other people do. So I think that is something that is really, really important to just keep in mind, is that there is no rule about how long you should spend on a unit study. Now, and what I'm really going to talk about more today are structured unit studies, because if you are doing a unit study that is more about helping your child to follow their interests, that really can be gauged by just watching your child and seeing if they start to lose passion for it. If they're not really interested in learning about it anymore, that would be a good time to stop doing that particular kind of unit study. But if you are doing a pre-written unit study, there are some ways that you can kind of gauge how long to spend doing it. And I'm going to just give a few examples. There are other ways that you can do it, but the first way that you can do it is you can actually think to yourself, if you are covering, say, if you're trying to fill in a certain number of weeks, say if you're starting something new like next month and you really don't want to do it yet, so you want to put a unit study in there, then of course you would want to try to pick out enough activities that will fill up that month but not give yourself too much to do in that time period. And that is something that I honestly have never done myself, just because when our unit studies are very, very often like the bulk of our homeschooling. The bulk of our homeschooling is really like read aloud, unit studies, interest-led learning, and the 3 R's. So it's like very, very simple for us. So that's what I'm going to get into now, is another way that you can actually try to figure out how long to spend on unit studies is, first of all, you want to look at your kids and yourself. I think that we homeschool parents always forget to include ourselves when we're looking into how things are done. But how many activities per day can your kids comfortably handle? And how many activities per day can you as the parent comfortably handle? When I started out we were doing CONUS, and I was very, very ambitious. So I was actually using, they do have a lesson plan in CONUS unit studies, and some unit studies do come with lesson plans. So I was really trying to go by that. And so I was doing like 4 unit study activities a day with my kids. But I noticed that just was not working for us. My kids would really lose interest far before we ever even started that 4th activity for the day. And I also realized that the lesson plans that are included in the CONUS unit studies, they don't include a lot of the other activities that are listed in their book. So if you really just stick to that lesson plan, and I'm not saying this just about CONUS, it could very well go with a lot of other unit studies that have lesson plan ideas. If you are really, really strict about sticking to that lesson plan, you might be missing out on a lot of other activities that you just haven't even looked at simply because they're not written in there. So I just caution you about that. But anyway, so then I actually went down to 3 unit study activities per day. And that was a little bit better, and we tried that for a while, but again, I really noticed that my kids were not very interested. So for about the past 6 years or so now, we have been doing 2 unit study activities per day. And that is like the magic number for us. So what I do now with our unit studies is I don't actually often even plan out a certain length of time to spend on the unit study. I don't say to myself, okay, I want to spend 8 weeks on this unit study. Unless, now for example, I just did do a Christmas unit study, the Little House Christmas Treasury unit study I just finished with my kids. So that, yeah, I did know that I wanted to finish it before we went on Christmas break. But usually I don't do that. What I will usually do is just put like a little star next to all of the activities in a unit study that I think will interest my kids or that I know that I can handle as the parent. And what I will do is I will then just start writing out my very simple spiral notebook lesson plan book, and I will just do 2 activities per day from the unit study until I have used up all of the activities that I personally put like a little star beside because I thought that we would be interested in it. And that is another way that you can figure out how long your unit studies take. You don't have to have like a set number in mind unless you have a specific reason for it. But to me, I believe that that is the most it's the easiest way to figure out unit studies, is not really giving yourself a strict length of time. I think that a lot of times we homeschool parents, we still have this idea that we have to, you know, follow a certain plan for everything and that everything has to take a certain amount of time. When really, you know, in homeschooling, we have the freedom to just kind of go with the flow. And so that is really my motto when it comes to unit studies too. So again, just pick out the number of activities that you think your kids could handle each day. Mark off the activities in your unit study curriculum that will interest your kids. And then just write out a lesson plan for it. Maybe 2 activities per day, maybe 3 activities per day. And then however long it takes, that's how long it takes. So that is something else that you can do. And even with the structured unit studies, the pre-written unit studies. I mentioned earlier that with the more relaxed unit studies where you're kind of just gathering things as you go along, I said about, you know, if your child stops being interested, you can just not even do that anymore. You can really do that with a structured unit study too. I think that a lot of times we parents have a hard time doing that because we still have the end in mind, like we still want to finish that curriculum. And you know, sometimes kids have their off days, so it's not something where, you know, the very first day that your kids seem not interested, you're like, okay, well, let's wash our hands of this. We're going to move on to something else. No, if you see that your kids are routinely bored by the unit study after like a few days or a week or so, then it might be time to just say, you know what, we're just gonna stop the unit study. Let's move on to something else for a while. And in the end, you could always go back. But anyway, so that's why it is really hard to answer the question, how long should a unit study take? Because it really, really depends on how much information there is in that unit study, and it depends on each individual family. But although I did not really give you an absolute concrete answer because there is none for this question, I hope that I have at least helped you a little bit today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work, I encourage you to check out my Patreon page and see what rewards I have for my patrons there. And I hope you have a great day.